The world these days keeps whispering to us. I'll make it convenient. You can enjoy it right away without a big payment. If it breaks, one call fixes it. All the annoying maintenance gets pushed outside. Sweet, right? But the moment that convenience becomes the standard in our lives, the nature of things changes. Throughout this video, you'll see how all these pieces connect, and it should help you understand the bigger picture. And before you pay for any subscription, I'll share a simple checklist you can use to judge whether the service is really worth it. Let's start with the forest. What many companies truly want, and what investors also prefer, is not a big payment once, but money that comes in again next month. With recurring revenue, it's easier to forecast next quarter's numbers, easier to plan, easier to raise investment. It also builds stamina when a downturn hits. In fact, on Wall Street, even if the revenue is the same, companies with subscription-based recurring revenue tend to get higher valuations than companies relying on one-time sales. So products and services keep moving from ownership to usage rights. Not buy and done, but pay and keep going. And one more thing changes here. The very concept of subscriptions has shifted. It's less about old subscriptions versus new subscriptions, and more about a structural difference between physical goods and digital. When you buy a physical thing, it usually stays in your hands. Delivery subscriptions are the same. Even if you cancel, what you already received still belongs to you. But as we moved into digital, the core of the subscription stopped being a thing and became access. The moment you stop paying, what you were using often shuts off. We moved from spending that accumulates to spending that only stays open while you keep paying. This didn't just change payment models. It weakened the very idea of ownership. Back then, my music was on my CDs, my movies were on my DVDs, my files were on my hard drive. Now they live inside an account, inside an app, inside a streaming library. Access becomes the default instead of storage. Being logged in becomes the default instead of copying. In 2009, Amazon remotely deleted George Orwell's 1984 from customers' Kindles. It was a copyright issue, but what shocked people was the fact itself, that a book I bought could leave my hands. In exchange for convenience, what I have shrinks, and what I borrow grows. So ownership gets pushed out of daily life as the default, and while maintenance and responsibility go down, the possibility of losing access comes along with it. Digital made this flow feel far more natural, and we got used to that naturalness. The key is design that lowers the barrier to entry. A free first month, $9.99 a month, limited time discount, cancel anytime. People instinctively avoid one big hit, so we often choose smaller payments over a larger upfront cost. Paying $100 once feels heavier than paying $10 10 times, even when the total is identical, especially when the future feels uncertain. Smaller charges feel psychologically safer. The real problem begins when that small for now payment stops being temporary and becomes the default. From that point on, payment is more likely to run on autopilot, not a deliberate choice. And when those payments multiply, it stops being only about money leaving your account. The bigger issue becomes the difficulty of managing it all. Payment methods split across cards, bank transfers, app stores, platform billing, and the billing dates are all different. At some point, you can't see your total monthly spending in one glance. You can remember one or two, but once it goes past 10, it blurs on its own. When cognitive overload hits, people delay decisions or give up. So management gets abandoned, and autopay hardens into place. At that point, the payment stops being consumption and turns into fixed cost. And once something becomes a fixed cost, it's much harder to cut later. It's not that the leak is huge, it's that there are too many holes. That's where the next gear starts turning. Getting in is easy, getting out is strangely inconvenient. The sign-up button is big and obvious, but cancellation is buried deep in menus or stretched across multiple steps. It asks, "Are you sure you want to cancel?" offers a discount, asks you to confirm again, and sometimes it ends with, "Call us" to finish. In UX design, this is often called a dark pattern. The important point is that these designs repeat because they work. People are busy, tired, annoyed, they procrastinate, they forget. When that very human gap turns into monthly revenue, the structure gets reinforced. And the reason the US FTC has been pushing to strengthen click-to-cancel rules lately is that this problem has gotten serious. Then the third gear is the way costs get broken into pieces. It shows you a cheap price at first, and then in the payment process, fees like service charges, processing fees, and management fees get added one by one. If you show the full total up front, people resist, so the burden gets divided into smaller chunks to weaken psychological resistance. You've probably felt this when buying flights or concert tickets. You think it's a $50 ticket. A booking fee, a cancellation insurance add-on, and a seat selection fee appear, and it becomes $70. Split-up costs don't hurt all at once, so they last. Your account starts to feel like it's connected to dozens of little straws, draining slowly, and the realization comes late. That's the basic skeleton of the pay-to-use product culture. A structure that favors recurring revenue, small payments that lower entry barriers, friction that makes cancellation harder, and cost design that splits totals to reduce resistance. These four gears lock together and spin. But there's one area where this structure lands the heaviest and hurts the most: housing. Why housing? Because housing costs are not something you can cancel. If Netflix feels expensive, you can drop it, but you can't drop your home. Among the monthly payments you make, housing is usually the biggest, your bargaining power is often the weakest, and your alternatives are the most limited. So when the logic of pay-to-use culture gets applied to housing, it sinks deeper into life than almost any other subscription ever could. So why has renting grown this much? Because home prices are too high is true, but that's closer to describing the surface, and it doesn't explain why the situation keeps hardening. From a more structural perspective, it's because housing can be both a place to live and an operated revenue stream. For individuals, a home is the foundation of life. But for institutional investors or real estate companies, a home can be an asset that produces long-term cash flow. A model where rent keeps coming in can look more attractive than selling once and moving on. And the bigger the scale, the more efficient operations become, the more vacancy risk gets spread out, and the more standardized financing becomes. In the US, a well-known example is what happened after the 2008 financial crisis, when institutional investors bought large numbers of foreclosed homes and turned them into rental businesses. Then technology enters, and the market starts moving colder and faster. In the past, landlords might have relied on gut sense and a rough look at nearby prices. Now, software is widely used to adjust prices based on data like local vacancy rates, competitor pricing, and demand patterns. In the US, as pricing tools like RealPage expanded their market share, critics argued that landlords who should compete instead end up converging around similar prices, and it led to class actions and even investigation by the Department of Justice. Here's the key. The moment a certain price range solidifies as normal, the market can start moving around that normal value regardless of individual circumstances. The room an individual renter can shift through negotiation tends to shrink. And housing gets the full fee buffet, too. On top of rent, there are management fees, parking fees, pet fees, amenity fees, renewal fees, late fees, and more. Each one looks small, but they're extremely effective at pushing the total upward. Contracts get long and complex, and tenants struggle to tell which costs are their choice and which costs are built-in defaults. In the end, rent becomes not just an expense, but a fixed cost that keeps shaving off your basic life stamina. There's one more change that follows from this. When even a big expense like housing becomes obviously something you pay every month, your baseline shifts. In psychology, people sometimes call this anchoring. If it becomes normal for $2,000 or more a month to disappear into rent, a $10 subscription can start to feel like nothing. The resistance you feel when a payment hits you all at once gets reduced by splitting and repetition. And as more small amounts get pulled automatically, payment stops feeling like an action and becomes background noise. Once it's background noise, adding one more subscription gets easier. The point is not to argue whether each individual subscription is rational or not, but to recognize that the way they accumulate can blur your sense of the total. And, to be fair, this structure didn't happen only because companies pushed it. There were real ways it was convenient for consumers, too. Lower upfront cost, repairs handled elsewhere, easier mobility. Those options can genuinely make life lighter. In a time when young people move frequently, renting furniture or appliances can be a reasonable choice. The problem is that when convenience stays as one option among many, it's flexibility. But when it becomes the standard, it starts pushing other options out. Once the whole market gets rearranged around fixed monthly costs, you can end up paying the price of convenience, even when you didn't choose convenience. A market where you want to pay once, but only subscriptions exist, or where you want to own, but only renting exists. Now let's look at the results. When fixed costs grow, the size of your life shrinks. If your paycheck comes in and immediately flows out through rent, insurance, phone bills, subscriptions, and installment payments, saving stops being about willpower and becomes about whether there's anything left. When there's less left, long-term planning gets harder. And when long-term planning gets harder, people drift towards safer, more conservative choices. Experiments that change your future, like switching jobs, learning new skills, or starting a business, require the cushion to absorb failure. And the bigger your fixed costs get, the first thing you lose is that cushion. The decline in saving rates is not caused by one thing. Interest rates, inflation, growth, demographics, asset prices, all of it mixes together. But the point where pay-to-use culture clearly plugs in is this. In the past, a lot of spending was money you choose to spend when you want. Now the share of money that leaves just because you exist has grown. When fixed costs eat your income first, saving is no longer what happens if you try hard. It becomes whatever residue is left after fixed costs sweep through. When that residue shrinks, the pace of building assets slows down. That slowdown increases anxiety, and anxiety can push your hand towards small comforts, small payments, creating a loop. This is not about individual personality. It's a tendency produced by structure. So from here, instead of savings tips, a structure check is more useful. Saving is a technique for cutting spending. A structure check is a lens for seeing why spending has hardened into this shape. Before you argue whether a price is high or low, look first at where your ability to choose is getting locked. The subscription economy is not just about how much. It's about whether the convenience you get is really worth it, and what form that cost keeps accumulating in. So when you compare, Don't look only at the subscription fee. Put maintenance and management costs you'd pay if you owned it, and even installment payments or loans you might have carried to own it, on the same scoreboard. For any product or service, if you run it through the checklist I'm about to share, decisions get a lot easier. First, check whether you own it or you're only renting usage rights. Ask what stays in your hands the moment you stop paying. If nothing stays, you didn't buy a thing, you bought access. In that case, it's worth also checking whether there's an option that lets you own, and comparing that too. You can pay the same amount and end up with a completely different result. Second, check whether the exit is as easy as the entry. If sign-up is one click but cancellation requires a phone call, the friction created by that difference becomes the business model. The time you spend, the energy you spend, the annoyance you endure just to cancel is effectively a cost. It doesn't show up as a number, which is exactly why it leaks so easily. Third, check whether the total is visible at a glance. If the first price you saw and the final amount you pay are different, you should confirm exactly where the gap came from. A structure where fees are split into separate items like service charges, processing fees, and management fees can blur your sense of the total. And the moment you realize, this is more than I thought, usually arrives late. Fourth, if possible, prioritize shorter subscription cycles. Annual subscriptions offer discounts, but you can't guarantee the service quality will stay the same, or that you'll still be using it, or that a better alternative won't appear. Long-term discounts are often a way of selling the feeling that you got a deal. Of course, if your plan is clear and you truly have long-term use for it, an annual subscription can still be reasonable. The key is not the discount, but the probability that you'll actually keep using it. Finally, make your payment setup as simple as you can. One card, one account, so your spending flow gathers in one place and you can see your monthly total automatically. If that's not possible, even a simple list helps. If you've never had this habit, you'll probably be surprised the first time you do it. The total is often higher than you thought, and it's common to find quiet services draining money even in months you didn't use them once.
And if you have your own useful methods, tell us in the comments.
In the end, what matters more than whether a price is cheap or expensive is what this deal is trying to tie you to. Convenience is a good thing, but if you choose while knowing where the price tag of that convenience is attached, you're far less likely to regret it later. In an era where the boundary between subscribing and owning keeps getting blurry, it matters more that you see your money flow and decide for yourself. This is not saying, cancel all subscriptions, and it's not saying, buy everything and own it. It's simply saying, check once whether the things you thought you chose freely have actually hardened into defaults, and whether the structure is quietly locking you in.